You have just stepped into the Midlife Revolution, your space to ignite possibility, redefine purpose, and embrace the power that comes with age. Co-hosted by yours truly, Coach Wayne.
And I'm Coach Stacy M. Lewis, and we're two seasoned coaches focused on the midlife community of color. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement. In a world that sometimes forgets the power and the wisdom that comes with age, we're here to ignite a revolution and rewrite the narrative of this incredible journey.
So, whether you're navigating career shifts, rediscovering passions, or challenging the status quo, this is your space. So buckle up. Let's dive into the Midlife Revolution. We're back, and it's the 25th. If you're seeing this on the second leg of the conversation we had last week about menopause and hormones, this is part 2 of it. And we left so much on the table because there's just so much to digest in that topic. We're talking last week about the impact and effects of hormone changes in men and women, and couples, and in the workplace as well. So today we are going to get back in and continue. I am Coach Wayne. I am your VIP coach that works with men as they transition through midlife so that their second half can be their best half. And Coach Stacy M. Lewis is the other anchor on this podcast. Stacy, good morning.
Ooh, a new title. I'm an anchor. It is such a pleasure to be here once again. So excited to pick up on this topic that we started last week. I am Coach Stacy. I'm a nonprofit executive. I'm a health educator, and I'm a midlife women's coach. And this conversation about hormones is truly important to us. We'll give full disclosure. Wayne nor I are medical professionals. We have life's experiences. We are well researched, and we recognize that this conversation about hormones, the impact of hormones in not only in the genders, but in this midlife season, is something that is not discussed enough. So we're excited to have this conversation. So where do you want to start, Wayne?
Well, let us invite folks to go back and check out last week's episode so they can sort of catch up and be brought up to speed with the conversation and the dialogue. And, let's just start right there. It's recorded. So, Stacy, last time we talked a little bit about the similarities in terms of the hormonal shifts that are happening across the board for men and women as they enter into midlife. And we talked a little bit about the differentiation in terms of the hormones, estrogen versus testosterone and growth hormones, and how that impacts what's happening. But I think, stressed the importance of the psychological and emotional impact that these shifts are having on folks, and how we might be able to reduce or benefit actually from going through the experience. And again, Stacy, this is where saging plays an important factor on aging, the mindset.
Yes, indeed. The mindset is critical. And the mindset of one of the things we talked about is not moving through an experience as though it is happening to you in a way that you don't play a role in managing it, in directing the experience. And so we talked about with hormones, we're just so used to saying, oh, I'm going through menopause, or and with men, we don't often even acknowledge that they're dealing with hormonal changes, and recognizing that, and not treating it as with a laissez-faire, or not dismissing it like, oh yeah, I'm having these abundant hot flashes and there's nothing I can do, but to really be proactive in taking care of oneself. And you, in that last episode, you outlined these four kind of heavy hitters that folks need to pay attention to as part of their wellness in this midlife season. Now, I know one was exercise, one was sleep.
Sleep, exercise, diet.
Diet. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And
And
mindset.
and
That
mindset.
that was the
Yes.
four heavy hitters.
Yes.
That was good stuff. So, like
Yes.
Wayne said, check out the last episode focused on hormones. It was really a great conversation.
Yes. And the fact that we are consuming, for men and women across the board, a lot more estrogen in our
Mm,
diet when we are having food that's sprayed by herbicide that's laden with a substance known as uh, atrazine. And atrazine is banned in Europe and a lot of other countries because of the findings that they have that suggest that it's not necessarily the best alternative to growing your food and treating it, right? So we have to deal with that. But it's controversial, Stacy. We talked a little bit too about the frog experiment where male frogs ingesting or being fed in a lab atrazine, actually it impacted them so much so that they became female frogs, right? So go back next week and last week and check on that. Stacy, one of the things that we see in terms of even with men that I deal with, and this certainly bears to what we talked about in terms of mindset. You know, when a man has had a long relationship with a significant partner,
mm-hmm.
and unfortunately there is a death, and she leaves before him. What happens is oftentimes that man is unable to function sexually for a while in a healthy manner because he suffers from ED. That's known as widower's impotence. And he may check out otherwise okay, but the guilt that he feels to have intimacy with another woman
Mm-hmm.
since he survived his wife is what brings that about. And so we talk about what's happening in terms of menopause. Now, for women, menopause, and Stacy, you're the expert here relative to me, right? None of us are doctors, like you said. But menopause, from what I've seen in the research for women, usually happens at an older period in the woman's life than it starts for men, where men's testosterone starts showing up in their late 30s, even early 40s. For women, mostly menopause, is this correct? Happens late 40s, 50s, even?
Well, I think to your point about what we ingest, what we put in our bodies, we've definitely seen some shifts in women, their experience of menopause, the onset of menopause, the perimenopausal period, which we don't talk a lot about, but it could be a year, it could be a number of years. That a woman is in a perimenopausal state where there's some hormonal shifts that are taking place, but she's not quite on the other end or has not fully gone through menopause. And so, one of the things we talked about during the last episode was just really the hormonal shifts and experiences, even in youth, and how those show up. And so, as we talk about aging, and you talk about the male's widow syndrome, the reality is that women are also going through their own hormonal shifts that are significantly impacting libido, that are significantly impacting the emotional stability sometime that we're able to experience on a day-to-day basis. So this conversation about hormones is truly important, and one where, folks need to really begin to look introspectively and ask some questions that start to really help us understand what we're going through, what we're experiencing, and not just be dismissive of those experiences. And honestly, I appreciate you pointing out this, what that it's actually been identified as a syndrome, right? Because you have these hormonal shifts that, as a woman, we don't really talk about or focus on the hormonal shifts in men, and I'm sure vice versa. So
Yes.
the conversation is truly meaningful.
And how it shows up is not just restricted to the home or the bedroom, because as we're going through this, we talked about men earlier on having this cycle where with increased testosterone, you have that drive to compete and to
Mm,
win. And by having more wins, the reward gives you more testosterone. And so the cycle goes on. So for men, that early competitive winning thing is with us. And so what happens oftentimes when men are going through the shift in midlife or the beginning of the shift, which could be a little bit earlier than midlife, what happens is oftentimes either there's depression because we feel we are no longer part of the game of competition. So what do? We hit the bottle, we do drugs, we get sexual enhancement aids in ways that allows us to go out and try to conquer and regain that youthfulness by exploiting our sexuality, right? We have created this artificial sense of our need to be manly. And because we're going through this, and it shows up in the workplace, and how it shows up is workaholics show
mm.
up by people just spending more time at work, trying to ignore all the other stuff to stay competitive, because that's what men typically do in our society.
That was so, so good. And that it shows up in the workplace, right? That you talked about the kind of the experience. And just as that experience for men shows up in the workplace, the experience for women shows up in the workplace. We often are either dismissive or disrespectful, right? I mean, it's such an interesting dynamic because those attributes that you just talked about, right? Showing up strong and conquering the world, whether it be, in a good way or a not so healthy way, um, are seen as attributes, are seen as good things. For women, we are really striving in some ways, in particular in the workplace, right, to show up uh, without an emotional face, to show up without any vulnerabilities. And one thing that those hormones do is they can really exacerbate the vulnerabilities. You talk about, go to the bathroom and cry. You don't cry in the boardroom, but you go to the bathroom and cry. And sometimes you're not even crying about anything, but it is those hormones. And what we talked about in the last episode is the value of communication, not just in that, intimate partner relationship, but the value of communicating. No, not that you want to go to work and say, oh my gosh, I'm perimenopausal, or oh my gosh, I'm going through menopause, but to really say, there are ways to say, I'm dealing with some hormonal shifts right now, and I'm going to step away for a moment. Because when a woman is impacted by these hormonal shifts, it is not well received. It is not respected. It is not seen as a positive attribute. Yet those attributes that you highlighted for men, those are seen as like, yeah, he conquered it. He bought that new sports car. He, really is showing up. He's strong. Yeah, he's seeing a lot of women, whatever it is. But it's not the same for women. And I think that that's really, this just come out in this part of the conversation of, recognizing those differences and being a little bit more compassionate to what someone else's experience might be, or to why they might be responding in a certain way.
Yeah, this is a powerful conversation, Stacy, because
Yeah.
recognizing that our makeup is slightly different, right? Men and women.
Mm-hmm.
What is happening oftentimes in this period of midlife revolution, menopause? Women are taking on, and we see it in our community, women are taking on more masculine energy at this point because, listen, this is where women typically have already raised their kids, have done the nurturing, the feminine aspect of their life, focused on raising the family, nurturing, being the mom at home.
Mm-hmm.
And now, because they're free, they don't have to worry about getting pregnant. They don't have to worry about a lot of the stuff that formerly were constraints. This post-menopause period is almost a new sense of finding self and freedom when women own it, right? And so now they're looking at restarting their career, going back to school, and recognizing that there is life at the end of the tunnel, right? Men who typically, based on our society, unless they have established some sort of wherewithal and foothold earlier on, are struggling in their heads at the same period. And so while the women are stepping up, and the men, by the way, should, and let me just add this, find their divine feminine. It is okay at this point to start loving yourself, to have more empathy and show more empathy, and show up at work and at play, not being so hard on yourself and thinking that you have to go conquer every mountain, but enjoy the stillness, enjoy the peace. I know a lot of my friends and myself, what matters more is not chasing shiny objects at this stage of our life, but having peace of mind and finding our purpose. That's part of the beauty of this.
That is the beauty of this season, right? That is the beauty of what we're terming or and allowing people to self-identify as midlife. It is that time where you really get to embrace yourself as you are, to recognize the growth opportunities that you have, right? None of us are perfect, but we're all now in this season of looking to not only live our best lives, but be our best selves. And the hormones play a role in that, right? As women, at least, experience the shift and come to a place where, like you said, it is that hormonal shift, right? That you're no longer worried about having babies, or whether you're worried about it or not. It is those types of shifts that take place and that impact you physically, that impact your libido, that impact your thinking, that impact your mindset. And now we are in this place, and those are the types of people, right, that you and I are here to serve, those that are really looking to
Yes.
shift that mindset and come into the season that says, this is who I am. These are the gifts I have. This is the offering that I want to give to the world. This is my calling. This is my purpose. And I'm going to live it. And so it is really looking at how we've come together. God is just so awesome to create us in the way that he did, to really now bring us to this point where we can really begin to have these conversations, to encourage others, to listen and to be more mindful, more compassionate, more empathetic to what someone else may be going through, and to really begin to identify opportunities and strategies to move forward in a place that is really just a stellar, beautiful place to be. So, oh my gosh, I didn't know I was going to go there, but
Love it.
just such a great conversation.
I'm glad you reminded us we serve a mighty God,
Mighty
Stacy.
God,
And
mighty
all
God.
things are possible once we have that faith and we take action in alignment with our divine purpose.
Yes.
When we're talking about going through midlife, it doesn't have to be a crisis on the other end or through the experience. There's a conscious part of us that we have to awaken and accept and own who we are, own our realities. Don't
Yes.
be in denial, be transparent, be honest. And so important that when we build friendships and relationships, that we see the whole person and understand without judgment that there'll be ups and downs or highs and lows. And it's important that we take people as they are and empathize, see people for what they're going through, so we can understand how to ride through this crest and wave together
Yeah,
successfully.
I that was so well said, Wayne. And I think one of the things we want to make sure we share with our listening and viewing audience is some strategies to really begin to acknowledge what's happening, right? To assess what's happening with you in this season, and to move forward in kind of from a position of conquering, as you said earlier, right? From a place of authority and victory.
Yeah. Communication, we talked about some of the four pillars
Hmm.
that we need to take care of: our diet, our health, exercise, and our mindset. And it all begins with mindsets. You know, Stacy, when I work with Black men around moving up and leveling up in their careers
Hmm.
and personal life, no matter how well they're doing or not, the number one key ingredient is to look at mindset. When you have mindset in the right place, Stacy, everything and anything is possible, you know.
I could not agree with you more. And I think as we think about mindset, um, take some time to self reflect, to think about why are you feeling the way that you're feeling. So often we rush past our feelings, right? And no, we don't want to live by how we feel, but you don't want to rush past your feelings. You want to really think about why am I feeling maybe less confident? What are my thoughts right now about me? Why am I not taking care of myself, in a way that will allow me to live until I'm 80, 90, 100, whatever my goals are. And asking yourself those questions about, kind of, who am I? Where am I right now? And thinking about, if journaling is not your jam, doing some voice notes about how you're feeling, about what's happening in your mind, and getting it out so that you can really begin to dissect it and tackle it in a way that, that is positive.
And Stacy, I'm glad you brought up that whole, what you're talking about is being inwardly aware, right? And trusting the process. If
Mm-hmm.
we, and to make a parallelism between work and play
Mm-hmm.
or intimacy, now both parties having been able to talk about feelings and what's going on and change their belief system. You know, you're not cursed because you're dealing with men-o-pause, right? But now, because of that, you can find a different way of relating and enjoy the process. See, men are accustomed to chasing for the next goal. We're so goal
Mhm.
oriented, let me win, let me get there. But what about the process in between? How can we enhance that in the bedroom, at home, in the relationship, and in your career and at work? So find purpose, enjoy the smell, the taste, the sound, the feeling. And firstly, we should tap into ourselves, have dinner with ourselves so we can
Mm.
enjoy our own company. It's okay. Get out of the man box that says we are stoic and we don't have emotions, because that puts extra pressure to bear on us, both at work and at play, and can be the start of disaster.
Bravo, my friend. Bravo. I think another strategy we can really engage in is not ignoring or downplaying the experience that we are having. Male, female, doesn't matter. We tend to dismiss often what is happening, but to really ask yourself some pointed questions about, what are the symptoms that I'm experiencing? For women, there's a lot of talk about hot flashes, but there are other symptoms. And, for men, it's clear that what you're saying is that there are symptoms. And what are those symptoms? What am I experiencing? Does stress make it better or worse? Does what I'm eating make it better or worse? Does alcohol consumption make it better or worse? I enjoy a great glass of wine like the rest of them, but, I'm also knowing that I need to be mindful not to overindulge, because that then it will take, what could be a kind of low feeling and really drag it down into the dumps. So let's ask ourselves these questions. And, when you've done a little note taking or mental note taking, if your capacity is there, talk to a healthcare provider. It
Ah,
really is important to not act like this is not happening.
yeah. I Having someone to talk with, having a soundboard, someone to get feedback from, is always a sign of health and
Agreed.
maturity and and wisdom, because no one gets there alone. And
Yeah.
so to be able to reflect just by having that person, oftentimes it might look like a therapist or a qualified professional like one of us,
Mhm.
a coach that can help you see your blind spots and call on your strengths so that you can move through those with more ease.
Yes, yes. And to that well articulated point, maybe it's time to make some modifications in your lifestyle,
Yes.
right? And one of those that you just alluded to is a support network. A network, doesn't mean you have to go to a group. I'm going through menopause group. That's not necessarily helpful, but finding that individual or those individuals that you can connect with on this authentic, somewhat vulnerable level is critical, because the reality is that if you're going through it, somebody else is too.
Yeah.
And to be able to have that conversation and just know that you're not alone and have your experience validated is life changing.
Just a little information on the side. When I was doing the research, I realized that for men, they call it in Britain viropause, and in France, andropause. But the most common terminology that is used, obviously, is menopause. But men do have it, is all we're trying to get across, so that men know that we don't escape the reality of dealing with life change. It's a different stage. It doesn't mean it's bad or worse. It just means we have to own it and address it.
Yes. Own it and address it. I love it. That's really it. We have to acknowledge it, own it, and address it. Mhm. Good stuff,
Stacy,
Wayne.
thank you. We're wrapping up another episode and we're finishing up today the Men's Health Month. But because we work together, if it impacts men, it's impacting women as well. And
Absolutely.
so this is why
Impacting
we're here
everyone.
doing this together, right?
Yes,
Stacy,
yes.
any last words before we get wrapped up?
My last words are thank you so much for joining us live or catching the replay. We hope and pray that you walk in good health. You are the revolution.
So next week, Stacy, is a new month. We're getting into July, and we won't be lying. We're going to be telling some truth about midlife. So stay with us and contact Coach Wayne or Coach Stacy for a discovery call to see how coaching can help you get to the next level. We'll talk to you soon. Bye for now. And there you have it, folks. This week's episode of the Midlife Revolution. Hey, we truly appreciate you spending this time in this space with us. Join us next week at the same time as we dive into relevant topics and present solutions to spark new thinking and empower your midlife journey.
Don't forget, if today's episode resonated with you, share your thoughts and suggest topics in the comments. And of course, remember to subscribe, share, like, and hit that notification bell. You are the Midlife Revolution. I'm Coach Stacy, and I'm cheering you on.
And I'm Coach Wayne, and I'll see you at the top.